Alright, this is the second tutorial in this series of plugging in your images. Next thing I want to concentrate is on the focus of the eyes. I've got to brighten up the tree trunk here. Now, I've got several methods of doing that. One is I can go into the curves dialog box and then brighten it up that way, or the levels. Another one is to maybe use the dodge tool. But I've developed a simple method that I like to use, and I'm going to show you the method that I use for right now. First thing I want to do is I'm going to make sure that I got a brush selected, and I'm going to be covering this tree, so I want to select the brush that's about the right size of this tree right here. Okay, that's good. Next thing we're going to do is go into the quick mask mode by hitting the letter Q. So, okay, that puts me into the quick mask mode. Now I'm going to start to paint. Let me get my opacity up here. I got the opacity set to 6%. I want it at 100. You want to get close to the edges, but you don't have to get right to the edge. And I'm going to have the light coming from the right side of the tree instead of the left. So really the important part is to make sure I've got this edge, right side of the edge of the tree selected. And that looks good to me right there. And I'll come out of quick mask mode by hitting the letter Q again. And I can see that I've extended over the edge of the tree a little too much. So what I'll do is go back into quick mask mode. I'll switch to the white, and I'll paint away some of the red just to get closer to that edge. Let's see how we do now. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Maybe just a little too much over here. And that's good. That looks about right. That's all I want. That's all I need. I'll zoom back out. Now I need to invert this selection by hitting Control Shift and the letter I. And now that saves that selection right there. Okay, now I'm going to go up to Select. We're going to save this selection. We're not going to use it just now. We're going to save the selection. I'm going to bring up this dialog box. And I'm going to just call it number 1, because we're going to make 2 selections here. This will be selection number 1. We'll name it number 1. Okay, now I can get rid of this selection. Control D to get rid of that. I'm going to make one more selection for this tree trunk right here. So I'll go back into the quick mask mode, get my paintbrush, and just paint slightly up into this area right in here, and right about there. That looks good. I think I just overdid it just a little bit over here, and just to make sure. Okay, let's take a look at what we got. Just a little too much over here. That looks good. I'll take that. So now we will need to invert this selection. Invert, Control, Shift, and the letter I. That inverts the selection. We're going to save this selection. Save selection as, we're going to call this one number 2. We're going to be using 2 selections in this technique. And click OK. And we'll make that one disappear with Control D. Now, I'll bring in my layers palette. Now I'm going to make an adjustment layer. And I'm going to make an adjustment layer for, hold on, let me bring this up here slightly. I'm going to make an adjustment layer for levels. And when that levels dialog box comes in, I'm not going to do anything to it. I'm just going to select OK. The next thing I want to do is this layer mask that created with this levels adjustment layer is white. I want to make that black, so I'm going to hit Control and the letter I. That'll invert that to black. Okay. Now the next thing we do is going to load our selections. So I'm going to go up to Select, Load Selection, and I'll bring up this dialog box, and I want to load in selection number 1. And there she goes. And next thing I want to do is grab my gradient brush, and I want to go from white to transparent. So I got the foreground selected as white, and we're going white to transparent. And let's just go straight across like that. And let's take a look at that, see what that looks like. That's what that mask looks like now. Okay, I'll deselect that. Next thing I'll do is I'll load the second selection we made, load selection, and we're going to go load number 2. And that covered this one right here. Okay? Next thing we're going to do is make sure we still got our foreground color set to white. We'll go into our same gradient from white to transparent. And this time, since the light will be coming from the right, it may be shining up slightly at an angle, and I'll do something like that. So this is what our mask look like. It doesn't look like much, does it? That's okay. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to start to play around with the levels. So I'm going to bring up the levels dialog box. We'll get the layers out of here. And now what I want to do is I really want to brighten up the beginning of that tree trunk. So I'm going to play around and so I get it right where I want it, which is right about here somewhere. That looks good right there. Now if we look really close, you can tell, whoop, let's do this again. You can tell I've gone slightly over the edge on here. So I'm going to go back into my layers, mask here. I'm going to start to paint with black. And I think I've gone just about too far over the edge right about in here. So I'm going to paint that back in as black right here. Okay. Let's take a look at what we got. So this was before, and now that's after. Now, if we look at this side, we can still see that it also went slightly over the edges. So we'll take care of that also by painting on the mask and just erasing. We're not actually erasing, we're just filling in the mask. Okay, let's take a look, see what we got. And I think we got some up here too. A little too much up here. Okay, let's take another look. Alright, and you know what I think I'll do is lower the opacity slightly, and at the base of this, I'll begin to paint out some of the light here too also. Alright, so, we went from this to that. You can see we're bringing the focus into the middle of the image. So, alright, that's the next step in plugging in and lighting up your image. Be sure to stay tuned for the next tutorial, and we'll be working in a different area to bring this image to life. Thank you.